Today we will be showing you how to configure our automatic transfer switch controller called the ATyS C66 using the on-screen Smart Wizard. Socomec's ATyS C66 Smart Wizard makes the product intuitive to use and extremely user-friendly. The controller can also be configured using our configuration software called EasyConfig System. The ATyS C66 we will be using today is connected to our automatic transfer switch called the ATyS FT. In just 8 easy steps, you can configure 90% of what is needed to be configured on the controller. The configuration will be of the language, time and date, source configuration, switching and application, product name, and communication. At the first power-up of the controller, it will automatically start in manual mode, and the Smart Wizard will appear to guide the user through the main configuration parameters. Step 1. In the first step, you will have the option to select the language. There are 3 options available: English, French, and Spanish. For our purposes, we will select English. Step 2. After you select the language, you will have the option to start the wizard now, remind me at the next power on, or never ask me again. Since we are configuring via the Smart Wizard, we will select now. Step 3. In the next screen, you will have the options to choose Smart Configuration or manual configuration of the voltage, frequency, and phase rotation. The Smart Configuration allows these values to be auto-detected. The manual means that the user will have to enter the values manually. So here you can choose the Smart Config, the manual configuration, and so we will be doing the Smart Config for this video. Step 4. Next, you will need to enter the date and time. These date and time values will be saved, and the RTC battery will keep the clock running even if the supply to the controller is lost. First, we will select the date format. There are 3 options for the format, and you can choose whichever format you prefer. For demo purposes, we will select the month, day, year format. You can now adjust the date to the current date using the arrows on the right-hand side of the controller. Next, you will need to enter the time. The time is in 24-hour clock format, so make sure that you enter the time in this format. Step 5. If you selected Smart Config in the Step 3, then the parameter shown in this step is what the controller detected. You will need to confirm the parameter values. If you selected Manual Configuration in the 3rd step, then you will need to enter the values for each parameter on screen. For our demo here, the Smart Config detected 1 pole plus neutral for the poles and wires, 230 for the nominal voltage, 60 Hz for the nominal frequency, and the phase rotation is ABC. All of this you can see shown on screen here. Step 6. On this screen, you will see 3 parameters that need to be selected for the installation. First is the application type, which stands for the type of source coming to the controller. The options are utility genset, by default meaning the priority source is a power supply coming from a transformer, and the secondary source is from a genset. Genset, which means both sources, 1 and 2, there is a power supply coming from a diesel generator. Utility, which means that for both source 1 and 2, there is a power supply coming from a transformer. The next line is the source priority, which stands for the preferred source in automatic mode when both sources are fully available. The options are source 1. The source connected to source 1 sensing on the switch will become the preferred source, and the transfer switch will automatically transfer to this source as long as it is available and the timers are respected. Source 2. The source connected to source 2 sensing on the switch will become the preferred source, and the transfer switch will automatically transfer to this source as long as it is available and the timers are respected. Then lastly, no priority, meaning there is no preferred source. The switch will stay in the same source as long as it is available and will only transfer automatically when it will be lost. When a source comes back, the switch will not transfer as long as the current source is available. The 3rd parameter is the switch technology, which stands for the type of switch used with the controller. The options are ATyS DT, delayed transition, which is to be selected when using a delayed transition dual operator power contactor switch with 3 positions, 1, center off, and 2. In this configuration, in-phase transfer is disabled by default. Next is the ATyS FT, which is an open transition. to be selected when using an open transition single operator power contactor switch with two positions 1 and 2. In this configuration, the in-phase transfer and monitoring will be automatically enabled. Next is the ATyS UL. This is to be selected when using a motorized transfer switch, such as the Socomex ATyS UL. The next option is contactor. This is to be selected when using two separated circuit contactors. And the last option is circuit breaker. This is to be selected when using two separated circuit breakers or air circuit breakers. So for our demo product, we will set the application type to utility genset, the source to priority 1, and the switching technology to the ATyS FT. Step 7. In this step, you can name the product. As default, it is named ATyS C66, but it can be changed for any combination of letters, numbers, and symbols. You can name it things such as cooling, line, and etc. For demo purposes, we will just call the product ATyS C66. Step 8. In this step, you will set the communication parameters such as baud rate, stop, and parity. Once you click OK, you can now set the slave address. The slave address for the ATyS C66 is 6 by default. After entering and confirming these parameters, the wizard will inform you that the minimum parameters needed for the transfer switch to work are set and invites you to go to the menu home screen where the user can set some parameters and functions manually. Now that the configuration is complete, we will show how the ATyS FT works when a source is lost. Looking at the screen, you can see all the LEDs lit up. Based on these, we can see right now that source 1 and source 2 are available and that the source supplying the load is source 1. We can also see that the manual handle is on source 1. So when we switch off source 1, you will see the LED go out for source 1 and the timer will start. Once the timer is complete, you heard the noise of the ATyS FT switching to source 2. You can now see that the manual handle is on source 2 and the LEDs indicate that the load is supplied by source 2. When I switch source 1 back on, the ATyS FT will switch back to source 1 to supply the load. This happens because in step 6, we set the source priority to source 1, meaning source 1 is the preferred source and the transfer switch will automatically transfer to this source as long as it is available. The manual handle is back at source 1 and the LEDs are lit up for source 1 and source 2 and the load is supplied by source 1. For more information about the ATyS C66, please visit our website at www.socomec.us.